we're certainly embracing it. And one of the things that we've done at RXR over the last 5 years is we've developed our own digital lab where we have a handful of data scientists, and their only job is to look at property technology and AI opportunities to see how it could enhance what we do as owners, operators, and developers. We're evaluating the market every day, and we're not necessarily just saying because this technology said to do this or because that person said to do that, we're going to do it. In fact, often talk about this because of the vertically integrated nature of our business, talk about this with our construction team, right? The job's not done when the building's complete, and you talk about it with the development team. The building's not complete when you've stabilized the asset, right? It's forever changing, and we see that as an opportunity to continue to embrace AI, but it's going to happen with data collection, but more importantly, with an actual human behind it to make sure that we're shadowing the technology during this investigation phase, if you will, while we get comfortable with what's out there, to work through the kinks to make sure that the information that's being spit out to us, A, is correct, B, we agree with, and C, is ethical, right? So we want to make sure that we're tracking that. And we're sort of in that phase where it might be duplicative and we might be doing a little bit of redundant work that maybe the machine, if you will, could be doing for us, but we want to make sure that the results that we're setting as an organization and what we're broadcasting as our RXR brand, and more importantly, as community leaders, is correct.
So we're in the very early stages of exploring AI for a number of our business units, but where we've actually had some practical application is actually on the real estate side, and this is specific to our site selection process. Our real estate portfolio, that's 75 asset, 15 state, cluster of assets. 65 of those assets are fixed site donor centers. So these are donation centers where any of you could go and donate blood. When we're trying to find locations for those centers, we're relying very heavily on tools like Placer AI. We're looking a lot at populations, at demographics, psychographics, just to make sure that where we're locating our sites is where we're actually going to have loyal donors, which is very important. The other piece of that is also understanding, similar to the project at Rye, when we have a new headquarters, if that is going to be a suitable location too. So understanding the local job market, understanding the impact to commute times, this is all data that we take a very long look at when we're deciding whether or not a space is suitable for leasing or purchasing.
Certain things that were particularly in our hotels, where there are a lot of tasks and organizations of whether it's cleaning the rooms and figuring out what's clean and what's not, checking in guests and doing things like that. Certainly we're embracing technology where it makes sense in AI as an extension of that. Where we're really careful, both in the hotels and the apartment buildings, is that we're really selling a lifestyle more than a building. And so we're careful not to replace the human part of it. And really what I think we're doing is repurposing the human element by saving time on some of the menial things, which you're referring to, so that in the hotels, for instance, what we might have had an extra front desk agent, but now because of the technology, because of our systems, that person becomes a floating concierge through the lobby, greeting guests and asking if they can help them. And it's similar in the apartment buildings in that although the technology, I don't believe in terms of, because we tested and looked at a lot of the bots and a lot of the community, and there's a lot of different technologies out there. I don't think it's gotten to the point where it's seamless, where a tenant can call with a complaint and they get an answer and they don't need to speak to a human. I think it can be a step in the process. I think it will be there. I think it might be in a year from now or 2 years from now. I think it's in a short period of time, but we're looking at it that when that could happen and we can free up our leasing people, our management people from dealing with the day-to-day of the tenant issues that can be handled as well with technology, then they become community ambassadors, planning more events for the community as a concierge in our building. So really, we see it as not necessarily going to be a cost savings, but a redirection of our labor to create a better lifestyle, I'll call it, for our guests in the hotels or for our apartment tenants, because that's really what we're selling in all these buildings. It's not just a place to live.
AI has played a huge role at our company. It's allowed us to punch well above our weight class, simply by being able to automate certain things. When I think about government technology or the government's approach to technology, not necessarily the most forward-moving group on the bleeding edge of technology, but, I'll give you a couple of examples. We look at the big challenge around affordability in the United States, in Connecticut, in the tri-state area. It's a serious supply challenge. And part of the reason that the supply isn't necessarily that we need to net build a lot more units. I think we need to take better advantage of the existing supply in the market and make processing easier for all parties. What we found is that there is a tri-party agreement between state housing agencies, owners and operators, and the residents that they house that, is a slow-moving process that we've just figured out, to the mousetrap comment, how to make faster. Today, our median average processing time on applications is under 10 minutes. All those banks and payroll providers that we connect to, we source high-fidelity data. And to give you a really specific example, one of the things that I'm sure everyone on this panel agrees with is, there is this fear of fraud in the market right now. Fraud plays a huge role in the decision-making process. What we've figured out is by using our models. So a previous startup I worked at was a machine learning company, took some of the ideas that I had and built what we have now, whereby, imagine someone is submitting bank statements, pay stubs, tax returns. Today, for an owner, a landlord, there's that pencil and ruler effect of going through and manually sourcing data from these documents. But there's also the fear of, are the documents that I'm looking at even real? TransUnion produced a study that shows that there was a 30% increase in fraud over the course of the pandemic. Many people fell upon tough times, and, well, it is what it is. But what we do with our documents is we use AI to extract the data from the document, but we also remove the metadata from underneath the document. We do a reconciliation by comparing those automatically, and if something on the page doesn't match what's inside the page, we spit out a flag warning. That in and of itself is tremendously helpful and is actually saving owners and operators millions of dollars in lost rent by simply not going down the road of a fraudster. We've also utilized AI in the way that we do our income and our employment verifications. We have a process that we call cross-source validation. Cross-source validation is once we've removed all the transactions from a bank statement, we compare account holder to the name on the driver's license to the name on the pay stub. We're able to run some really interesting checks around being able to validate the authenticity of documents and identity, but to also calculate things that take many people hours worth of time and many more staff members to do. But we automate all those pieces in the process to help house more people, but understanding that it is that tri-party agreement that's always at the heart of what we're doing.